the Southern Ohio Farm Show. This is Gigi Neal of OSU Extension in Claremont County, Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator.
I'm James Morris, the Agricultural and Natural Resources and Community Development Educator for the Ohio State University Extension in Brown County.
And I'm Brooke Beam, the Ohio State University Extension Educator for Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Community Development in Highland County. And we will be your hosts for the Southern Ohio Farm Show.
Hi, I'm Tammy Jones, Family Consumer Science Educator with OSU Extension in Pike County.
And I'm Lisa Barlage, the Family Consumer Science Educator in Ross County. And today we're going to do a little Turkey Talk 101. And a lot of people this time of year will put on our Facebook page for our office, or they'll call in. They say, how do you safely prepare bird? This is my first year to cook a turkey, whether it's for Christmas or whether it's for Thanksgiving. And so we thought we'd give a few tips to the people in our area about how to plan ahead. So when we plan ahead, we'll be more successful. And we definitely want to plan our menu ahead of the holiday. This year you may be socially distant, things may be different than in the past. You might be preparing all of the food for a couple people, or maybe you're sharing it with the other people in your house. You're going to prep something, they're going to prep something. Plan your meal ahead of time. Shopping early will ease the tension.
Absolutely.
I know I was in the store one day early last week. There were a lot of turkeys. I was in the store today. There were only a couple. So planning ahead, maybe checking temperatures, looking at our checking locations, checking the ads to know what's available. And then one of the most important things, do you want a fresh or a frozen bird?
Good question. It's a personal preference.
It is.
There's no right or wrong.
One of the most important things I think about with that is, do you have a place to put a frozen bird in your freezer? Because you're probably going to buy it well ahead of time. It's not going to be ready to thaw yet. Or do you have room for it in your refrigerator? One or the other. And then what size bird do you need to buy?
How do you know? Just pick one that you think looks like about the amount you need?
Yeah, the one that's on sale.
Yeah.
One of the things to think about is if you're just going to pretty much eat the bird that day, then a whole bird, a pound a person is a good estimate. If you want to make sure you have leftovers, and probably a lot of us do want to eat a few turkey meals, or maybe place some things in the freezer for a little bit later, then you want 1.5 pounds is a better gauge. Or maybe planning a couple extra pounds onto what you would need. If it is a boneless breast, it's only 0.5 pound.
Why is that? Why is it less?
All that bone adds weight on. So if it's just a boneless breast, and those are great to use for a really small, maybe it's just a couple, or someone that really doesn't want any leftovers. That breast is an ideal thing. And some of the supplies that we need.
Oh, this is key.
Yeah,
having
it
those
is.
supplies ready ahead of time so
It
that you're
is.
not panicking or rushing around trying to find something.
So we've got a turkey. This is a fresh turkey that I picked up today. We've got it on a pan. A pan is important for thawing. We'll talk about that a little later. We're going to need a roasting pan. This is a disposable roasting pan. These are great because you can just throw it away when you're done.
Or recycle it if you have aluminum recycling.
Yes. Or you can use a roaster. And a roaster is great because if you only have one oven and you have to do all the food, you may run out of space. So a roaster is a really great thing to use.
Because that turkey can take up, depending on the size of it, several hours of your oven, and often you can only use one rack when you have a large bird, so you may not be able to do any of your other dishes during that time.
That's right.
So a roaster is, if you don't own one, borrowing one would be a good idea.
Both Tammy and I agree that a turkey bag makes things really easy. This is a personal preference kind of a thing, but we think it makes the turkey prep real easy. So we were going to recommend that you get that. You're going to check the sizes of those bags. I've seen before where certain varieties, it needs to be a turkey bag, turkey size. Sometimes they'll say for large birds or small birds.
Because you don't want your bird just to fit in there. You want there to be room for air and breathing as the temperature rises in there and the juices begin flowing. So you want a bag that's larger than the bird.
Mm-hmm. Most of these bags will recommend just a dusting of flour. About a tablespoon is going to go in the bag, so you need that flour. Then you can either do fresh herbs or you can do dried herbs. I picked some up at the store. A lot of people have fresh in a garden or in pots in their kitchen. I've got some bay leaves, and then this one's actually a blend. It has parsley, rosemary, and thyme in it. And so those work great for your bird.
Do they go in the bird?
You can either, I usually stuff those in the cavity. That's just the way that my family did it. Some people will blend those herbs, not the bay leaf, but the thyme, and they'll blend that with the butter and kind of rub that on the top. So that's a preference sort of a thing. We do need either oil or some butter to coat the top if you want that golden coating on the top. Just a little salt and pepper, and salt, we're going to recommend that you do not overdo, because a lot of other things are going to have salt in it.
And salt and pepper can always be added later for personal preference, but you can't take it away once it's in there, so you don't want to do too much.
And then I like to stuff a little bit of veggies in that cavity, because we've already said we're not going to recommend that you do a
bread stuffing.
Mm-hmm, yes. So I would do some celery, some fresh carrots, cut an onion into, and just kind of shove that. It's going to be a loose shove, not fill the whole cavity, just shove a few pieces in, and that just gives some extra flavor. And if you want to use those drippings for soup or broth, then it's going to have a nice flavor. And we definitely need a thermometer. We've got just a traditional thermometer, or another idea would be a digital thermometer.
All right, so Lisa's kind of told you what you need to do to get ready. So one additional step is, especially if you are purchasing or have a frozen turkey that you're going to be using, a frozen turkey can be frozen indefinitely, and it is safe to do that. So if you purchase it and you're unable to use it for some reason at this time, it can remain in the freezer. It doesn't have the shelf life that a fresh turkey would have. You want to thaw your turkey properly, and this is definitely a food safety perspective that you want to think about when you're thawing that turkey. A package of meat or poultry left out on the counter for more than 2 hours definitely can bring in a presence of bacteria, and is not going to be at a safe temperature. So you want to be sure that your meat or your turkey in this case is properly refrigerated and stored at the temperature so that it's safe. So there are 3 ways to safely thaw your turkey. 1 is a refrigerator method. 2 is a cold water method. And finally, if you are in a pinch, and sometimes people run into needing to do this, is the microwave method. So immediately after purchasing your turkey at the grocery store, you want to take it home, and you're going to want to get it into the freezer to keep it frozen until you need it. Whether you might buy it a month ahead of time, you might buy it a couple weeks ahead of time. But if you're purchasing a frozen bird, you don't want to buy it necessarily the day before. You want to make sure that you're buying it in time. But I want to stress that turkeys should not be left on the back porch, in the trunk of the car, on the counter, in the basement, or the sink, where the temperatures can't be properly monitored. And that is from a food safety perspective, that you definitely don't want to thaw it that way. So properly thawing it, I would recommend using the refrigerator method. You will need approximately 24 hours per 4 to 5 pounds to get it thawed in the refrigerator properly. So you want to be sure when you're taking that frozen bird out of the freezer, you want to be sure you put it in a container that's deep enough so that any juices that leak out of it are staying within the container, whether it be a bowl or a roasting pan like Lisa showed you before. You can use those also to thaw them in the refrigerator.
So Tammy, what if I bought that 20-pound bird? When do you think I need to put that in my refrigerator from the freezer to get it thawed?
So a 20-pound bird could potentially take you up to 5 to 6 days to thaw in the refrigerator. So if you are cooking that, say you're cooking it on Thanksgiving morning, the morning that you need it, which would be a Thursday, you would most likely want to hit that in the refrigerator to thaw the previous Friday, no later than Saturday, in order for that to thaw safely in the refrigerator. I do want to remind you that once you've thawed it in the refrigerator, you can keep it for 1 to 2 more days in the refrigerator once it's thawed before you cook it. So allowing that extra day or 2 in there for it to thaw, because often it might thaw on the outside but might still be frozen on the inside. So you want to be sure it's completely thawed out. And foods that often are thawed in the refrigerator can be refrozen. So maybe something happens the last day and you're unable to use that bird. It has been thawed in the refrigerator. You can put it back in the refrigerator and use it at a later time. So this, say you have about a 10-pound turkey, say you're cooking for 8 people and you want to have, a little bit extra. That's going to take you a couple days in the refrigerator to thaw out properly. And obviously the larger the bird, the longer it's going to take. You want to keep in mind to keep that turkey in its original wrapper when you're thawing it in the refrigerator, and keep that pan underneath it for any juices that might leak out. If you are using a fresh turkey that Lisa showed you earlier, you're going to want to check the label. There's going to be a sell-by date on that fresh turkey. Usually it's got quite, several weeks and days before use. This one, for example, says it needs to be sell-by 12/1. So sell-by 12/1 can be kept in the refrigerator for a couple of days before using. So you want to use that as part of your planning to make sure that whether you're using fresh or frozen, that you've allowed enough time. Another method is the cold water thawing method. Now with this method, you need to be right there and be attentive, because the water needs changed every 30 minutes. So you want to be sure your turkey is wrapped up in a leak-proof plastic bag. This will prevent any cross-contamination, and it will prevent your turkey from absorbing the water, because it must be submerged in cold tap water, and that tap water needs to be changed out every 30 minutes. And the other key is, as soon as it's done thawing, you need to cook it. It needs to be used immediately. And then after you're cooking it, the meat from the turkey can be refrozen. So you're going to go from the cold water thaw to cooking to either freezing or refrigerating it. So how long in a cold water thaw? You need about 30 minutes per pound. So if you have a bird anywhere from 10, let's stick with that 10-pound range. If you have a 10-pound bird, it's going to need at least 5 hours, and that water changed out every 30 minutes. So you want to be sure that, if you thaw in the refrigerator, it can be in there and you don't really have to tend to it for days. But if you're thawing in cold water, you need to be there every 30 minutes doing that to get it thawed completely. And then our last method of safe thawing is the microwave method. First off, I caution you, you want to be sure that the bird that you've purchased will fit in your microwave. And it's probably not going to be a very big bird. So you want to check this out upon purchase, because you don't want to purchase this bird, freeze it, and get it out to thaw in the microwave the night before, a few hours before you need to start cooking it, and realize that it doesn't fit in your microwave. So you want to check that first. You want to check your instructions that came from your microwave manufacturer to know how many minutes per pound and what power level to defrost or thaw that turkey out. And then you want to plan to cook it immediately afterwards, because as you know, microwave cooking isn't always the most even, and certain parts of that bird might start to cook during the defrosting thawing process in the microwave. I want to remind you that when you do use the microwave to thaw, be sure you remove all of the outer wrapping. There's often metal on the ends of the packaging on that turkey, so you want to be sure to remove all of that. You want to be sure it's in a microwave safe dish to catch all the juices as it's thawing out. And then you don't want to refreeze this turkey. Once it's been thawed using the microwave, it needs to be cooked. And then one key thing is, inside every turkey, you are going to find a package in the cavity that Lisa was referring to earlier of giblets. They're usually in a paper type bag, as Lisa is showing you there. And there's often a gravy packet as well. So you're going to remove those before thawing, and then you're going to cook those, after thawing, and you're going to cook those separately, not in your bird.
When we go to cook our bird, we're going to set our oven temperature no lower than 325. And most of us are going to want to do that as we're prepping our bird. Go ahead and get that going. We're going to place our turkey or turkey breast on a rack for optimum. So if we have this roaster, we can use a cooking rack. This one actually came in our roasting pan. It's a great one because you can lift it in and out. So you can place that in or in here. I saw some experts show on videos that you could use cooking twine to make your own little lifter. if you don't have any kind of rack, maybe this is your first time, you can make your own piece to elevate your bird, and you do that with foil. Just pull a piece. You're gonna go ahead and kind of roll it on the angle. Make a little ring. Hook 2 or 3 of these together, depending on how big your bird is. And you've made yourself a little ring.
So what does that ring do, Lisa?
This ring is going to help elevate our bird and allow it to get the temperature all the way around. We're going to have circulation for our heat, and it's going to also prevent it from sitting in the juice. So the longer the bird cooks, especially if we got a big bird, it's going to be in there a couple hours, maybe even 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours.
Larger than a bird, yeah.
And that liquid that's in the bottom, that bottom meat would get mushy. So if we've elevated that, we have allowed better temperature control, and we also don't have any of the meat sitting down in that juice. As we said, we're recommending an unstuffed bird. So most birds that I've seen in the store start 10, 12, 14 pounds. That's going to take probably around 3 to 3 3/4 hours to bake. And a bigger bird, those 20-pound birds, are going to cook 4.5 hours or more. Some really large birds, 5 hours or even more than that. So we want to allow that time. The whole turkey is cooked when the internal temperature reaches 165 with your thermometer. So you're going to use that thermometer to check it. You're going to check it in the thickest part of the bird. That's going to be that breast. It's really good to check the thigh, maybe even a wing as well.
So multiple places, not just in one. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes one part of your bird, depending on your oven, is going to get done. You just check that, and it doesn't allow anything. Have you seen those pop-ups on some turkeys, Tammy?
Yeah, I know I have a friend who did a turkey for the very first time and called me up saying, what is this red thing on my turkey, before they put it in the oven. So yes.
So some turkeys will actually have a little pop-up that's an indicator that usually means the bird is done, but we're still going to say go ahead and check that thermometer, because that pop-up is only in one area on the bird, and so maybe that area got completely cooked and you've got a spot that maybe it was still a little frozen when you put it in, and so it is not reached the 165 yet. And for best quality, when we pull our bird out, and we've actually got one in the oven, we're going to go ahead and pull that out, and we are going to allow that to set for 20 minutes before we carve. And that is going to allow any cooking to finish up. We've got our temperatures gone, and safety reasons, right, Tammy?
Absolutely. So we've done everything to this point. The bird is ready to go. We're going to let it sit before we carve it. So once your dinner is over, the chances are there may be leftovers. So just some tips on how to safely kind of store those leftovers, whether you're storing them for you or you're sending them home with others, or giving them to other people. One of the great things about the leftovers, they can be refrigerated for up to 3 to 4 days. So your leftover turkey, stuffing, gravies, things like that can be in the refrigerator. So one of the parts of planning and prepping is making sure you already have containers that you know can be used for this. So already having containers ready that I know that I could use, that have a seal on them, that could be placed in the refrigerator and then eaten for several days or used out of. But I also want to maybe freeze some of those leftovers. So maybe using a freezer safe storage container that seals, or you can also use the freezer bags that you can purchase. And the nice thing about the freezer bags is, you know, I can have a package of those and it probably has 20 some in it. So I know that I'm going to have more than enough if I want to divide my turkey into several bags for either several different people or several different meals. That you can always label right on them. They can be put in the freezer. And the great thing about these leftovers in the freezer can be in there for 2 to 6 months. And they still will have the good quality that they had. So you want to make sure that you have containers ready. Sometimes you have containers that you might put an entire meal in with the turkey plus sides. This obviously is not a freezer one. This is one that could be refrigerated, but you could have another meal ready for an additional day for maybe you or another family member. So being sure that you have those ahead of time, that they're ready to go. I want to caution you on having that bird sitting out and remembering the 2 hours of time that meat needs to be refrigerated or stored once it's been prepared, that it's not sitting out, because then it becomes in the danger zone, which is where foodborne illness or food poisoning can happen. So if you have a lot of turkey left, cutting it into smaller pieces, getting it into those containers and either refrigerating or freezing them as soon as possible after the meal is over. But putting them in those smaller pieces in those smaller containers kind of help get that temperature down to properly store it. And then one thing about leftovers is you want to remember to reheat them to temperature. And so when you say what's temperature, that's getting out that food thermometer again and knowing that when I reheat them, that 165, that same temperature, the internal temperature we used earlier, that our turkey is back up to that temperature to safely use it for a future meal or for others.
So in conclusion, we want to make sure we've planned. We want to thaw properly or refrigerate properly if we bought that fresh bird. We want to use our cooking temperature charts to cook to temperature. We definitely want to use our thermometer. And then we want to store and reheat it safely. And we always want to sanitize everything down, especially with a bird, before and after we're done.
Absolutely. So we hope that you found some of our ideas and tips helpful, and we wish you the best of luck with your turkey.
During planting and harvest season, we talk a lot about sharing the road with equipment and to safely travel during those busy seasons. Farmers are moving large pieces of equipment that, just like our own vehicles, have blind spots. They're designed for driving on soil, not on asphalt, but they have to travel from place to place. Weather conditions have lead on planting and harvest. Safety is the #1 priority during transport and while they're working in the field. Let us share some of the procedures that farmers use to keep themselves safe, their workers, and their equipment during the harvest season.
Hi, I'm Jason Hartsuch, OSU Extension Educator in Crawford County. Today I'm down at Farm Science Review. Behind me is a set of cover crop plots that we planted in early August. These are an example of different cover crops we could plant after wheat. As you look across, the first one we have is a forage turnip. There's a lot of growth there, can make great livestock feed, which is why it's a forage turnip. And then after that we get into some clover, and right after the clover is a ryegrass, followed by hairy vetch, and then 3 different brassica species. We have your regular radishes, and then there's canola, and then there's a regular turnip. And you can't really see it, there's another clover. After that, Balanza clover. The clovers will produce some nitrogen. The really tall grass you see is sorghum, and beyond the sorghum is a little bit of oats. All those can make great crops. The clovers won't winter kill, everything else is going to winter kill, make a great cover crop for after wheat.
Hi, I'm Amanda Douridas, OSU Extension Educator in Champaign County, and just want to share some benefits of cover crops with you. One that we really see here in Ohio with our changing climate and wet springs is soil protection or erosion control. So cover crops are really great at slowing down that water movement as it goes across the field. They also can scavenge for nutrients, take up excess nitrogen in years where the corn crop didn't use it all, and some of the legume crops can give a little bit of nitrogen ahead of a crop like corn as well.
One of the more complex projects we had this year with cover crops was interseeding corn. Quite a few of the species didn't grow very well for us because it was so dry. But the red clover did very well, even through the dry weather. It came up, it just kind of stalled out. And now you can see it has really nice soil cover, and we'll probably do a little bit of nitrogen fixation this fall and next spring.
While we have a lot of variety out here at Farm Science Review for demonstration purposes, some of these mixes can be expensive, and there are some different management practices that need to go along with this. So if you're just getting started, cereal rye is always an easy one to get started with, especially to get established later in the fall. You could do something simple as well, like a radish if you're trying to reduce compaction in your fields from previous years. So depending on what your goals are to accomplish, there are some simple solutions cover crops can offer.
Join us this winter as we come back and take video of the cover crops as they break down and decompose to see what you would have to plant through in the following spring after planting some of these various cover crops.
This year, the Southern Ohio Farm Show will be holding a holiday lighting contest. All members of the community are encouraged to participate. The Extension staff will record the illuminated displays on the evenings of December 8th, 9th, and 10th. The collective displays will be combined into a community highlight video, which will air on December 23rd. To enter your display, go to go.osu.edu/SOFSHolidayLights by December 7th to register your address. To complete the entry form, you will need to include your name, your address, county location of your display, acknowledge that you will have your illuminated display turned on for the evenings of December 8th, 9th, and 10th, and also you need to be creative and use this opportunity to spread some holiday cheer. For more information about the Southern Ohio Farm Show or other Ohio State University Extension programming, contact your local Extension office. And we are hoping to share a special episode of the Southern Ohio Farm Show with local nursing homes and extended care facilities. So help spread some community cheer and make someone's smile bright this holiday season.